I want to talk about head covering as it relates to being a crown of the daughter of the King of the universe. I'm going to start with 1 Corinthians 11, and hopefully this is insightful, interesting to you. Start in verse 3. But I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the man is the head of a woman, and God is the head of Christ. Every man who has something on his head while praying or prophesying disgraces his head. Okay, so how can, if the common argument for a lot of people is, oh, the long hair is a woman's covering, then why does it say if a man has a covering? I don't know about you, but this isn't, especially with my balding head, it isn't exactly a covering. I mean, sure, it protects my neck and my ears if I let it grow long enough, which is the point of letting it grow as long as I do. But I can't detach this. I can't detach my hair for the purpose of prayer. So, to me, it makes it really hard to say, oh, well, the hair is a covering. Verse 4. Every man has something on his... Okay, I've read that. But every woman who has her head uncovered while praying or prophesying disgraces her head. For she is one and the same as a woman whose head is shaved. Why? Because shaving the head was a shame to a woman. And you'll see why here in a minute. For if a woman does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. Have her hair cut off, not her head. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or her head shaved, let her cover her head. If it is disgraceful, and maybe you say, oh well, someone had their head they wear a head covering because their hair is shaved. Well, maybe. To some degree, okay, fine. For a man ought not to have his head covered, since he is the image and glory of God. Does that mean he shouldn't have hair? I don't believe so, because God wouldn't have put the hair here if he meant for men to have it shaved off. He wouldn't have put it there if that's what the covering meant. For a man ought not to have his head covered, since he is in the image and glory of God. But the woman is the glory of man. For man does not originate from woman, but woman from man. It's all about a headship order. For indeed, man was not created for the woman's sake, but woman for the man's sake. Yes, as a helpmate. She was created as a helpmate, which is why a woman, at least in my view, is the most beautiful of all God's creation. And a woman who loves God and obeys God is the most beautiful of all of God's creation, in my opinion. Therefore, the woman ought to have a symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. However, the Lord neither a woman independent of a man, nor a woman independent of, nor a man independent of woman. So they're not independent of each other, obviously. For as a woman originates from the man, so also the man has his birth through the woman, and all things. And then verse 13, judge for yourselves, is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? She's not going to wear a wig just because she's praying. So to me, this isn't a covering in that sense. I don't believe. You're welcome to disagree, but I don't believe it is. Judge proper. Does not even nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a dishonor to him? And of course you can argue what is long hair. But if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. But if one is inclined to be contentious, we have no other practice, nor have the churches of God. And then, the next portion goes into the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper, the bread and the wine, which is the marriage contract, which may actually be it's not by accident that those two things are right next to each other. Now let's go to Numbers 5. And by the way, a symbol of authority. Well, what is a crown to a king or a queen? It's a symbol of authority. To me, I would say the head covering for a woman is her crown is a symbol that she's a daughter of the King of the universe. And I want to bring out some things here from Numbers 5, where I believe it just talks about head covering. And like in Geneva Bible, it actually says remove her head covering. Numbers 5. You can read from verse 11 and up to from 11 to 29 is basically about if if there's jealousy, that a woman goes through this test, which is kind of interesting because it says in Scripture that Yahweh is a jealous God. And if we are the bride, think of it in that sense when you look at this adultery test and an honor and shame culture, which is why 1 Corinthians 11 was talking about, it's a dishonor, it's a shame for a woman to have her head shaved. Okay, so we see verse 17, and the priest shall take holy water in an earthen vessel, and he shall take some of the dust that is on the floor of the tabernacle, and put it into the water. The priest shall then have the woman stand before the Lord, and let the hair of the woman's head go loose. Exactly is that. Let the hair of the woman go loose. Some scripture says remove her head covering. Specifically says that in the Geneva Bible version. The grain offering of memorial in her hands, which is the grain offering of jealousy, and in the hand of the priest it is to be water of bitterness that brings a curse. The priest shall have her take an oath, and shall say to the woman, if no man hath lain with you, and if you have gone astray into uncleanness, being under the authority of your husband, be immune to this water of bitterness that brings a curse. And it's kind of interesting to me what happens with wormwood in Revelation. This is something that just occurred to me. Bitter waters, right? Why? And here's bitter waters. Maybe perhaps there's a connection there. I think there probably is, especially if you look at this is in the outer court where the sacrifices were done, which is the court of judgment. And the court of judgment is where those that are going to be judged are. The court of judgment, the outer court. We are to be in the inner court. We are as part of Israel. Like it says, all of Israel will be saved. But the whole point, the head covering is a symbol of authority. A seal. If you read in Revelation, someone have a seal on their forehead that we keep to the testimony of Yeshua, that we believe in the testimony of Yeshua and we keep the commandments. Those two things are brought up in Revelation. And the question is, will we pass the adultery test as a people? That is a rather interesting question, I believe. In light of this adultery test, I think maybe that's why it exists. Because we are to be a bride. You read that in Revelation. Like, for example, Revelation 19. What does it say? In Revelation 19:8. It says, it was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean. For the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. And in verse 7, let us rejoice and be glad and give glory to him. For the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. How does a bride make herself ready? She puts on wedding garments. It's the only time you will generally see a woman wearing a white dress. You're not going to see it any other time. And so hopefully this gives you some food for thought, both for men and for women. So I do believe that the head covering is a crown of the daughter of a daughter of the king. And since Yeshua is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, it makes sense that his bride has a crown. And I think for women, part of that crown is head covering. That's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Shalom, shalom.